All right, so we're going to talk about long-term losers, right? And we're going to talk about those plant materials specifically for the Southeast.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, so the concept with these long-term losers are plants that don't perform well in our southeastern region over the long term.
Gotcha.
So I hate to say, that there are any hard and fast rules with gardening, but in this situation, there are a few reasons why we would discourage you to plant some of these plants and look for alternatives.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
That might be disease, it might be insect, it might be proper siting of that plant. So that's kind of how this whole concept for me came about.
Okay, so let's get started with Leyland Cypress.
So Leyland Cypress is a plant that we see used large scale on a regular basis. That trend started maybe 15, maybe 20 years ago, you planting 20, 30 of them in a row. And now we're seeing serious issues with Leyland Cypress, and have for a number of years. We're strongly recommending to kind of stay away from the Leyland Cypress here in our growing region.
Got it.
There are other places in the country where these plants can thrive and do well. We get further west, there's less humidity, less heat, and they just really struggle in our environment with a disease called Ceridium canker that can often be influenced by our droughts that come in the late summer. So we'll have a drought one summer, and then the following year those plants start to decline, and people wonder, why do I have a brown branch here? Why do I have a brown branch there? Well, that is a disease called Ceridium canker that has kind of settled into that stress plant. So anyway, let's talk about some alternatives. We've got great alternatives. Eastern Redcedar. People see this on the side of the streets, highways, fence rows, think it's a junk tree. If you have ever seen an Eastern Redcedar growing in full sun out in the open, it has beautiful form, beautiful color. It's native, it's tolerant of many soil types, dry and wet.
It's not picky?
It's not picky. So that's a wonderful option. And then Arborvitae is also, would be very comparable to Leyland as far as their rate of growth. And also shape, and just, it's a evergreen conifer. So lots and lots of options as far as size, color, form in that Arborvitae family.
Like it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So let's see, what's next after evergreens? Should we talk about ornamental?
We can do ornamental.
Ornamental trees?
We sure can.
Okay. So a few trees to stay away from when we're talking about medium-sized ornamental trees. Bradford pear, I hope, is top of everyone's list. This is a plant that I will say, do not ever plant this plant. I told you I don't do a lot of rules, but this is one rule. Yeah, this is one rule. So it reseeds. And in these disturbed sites, it will be prolific, and you will have a thicket of Bradford pear, or calorie pear, right? Bradford is just a cultivar name, and people have started calling all of them, all the calorie pears, of Bradford pear. And they are thick. And when they come back from seed, they have thorns.
Yes, I've seen some of those.
And in a home landscape, they are not long-lived anyway, because they've got weak branch intersections, or crotches, what we call them. So if we get a lot of rain or wind or snow, they have a tendency to break in half. But guess what? We have a lot of better options
let's see those options.
than that. Lots of better options.
Let's see that.
So Eastern Redbud, that is a native tree for us. You will see that up and down the interstates, wild spaces, wooded areas in early spring. Has a beautiful purple bloom. I know a lot of people like the Bradford pear because it has that early white spring bloom. So this does still have the bloom. Has a beautiful heart-shaped leaf.
I love it.
Lots of cultivars out there that have really cool color patterns on their leaves. So some are chartreuse, some have red new growth that kind of moves into a golden color, and then others even have variegation on their leaves. So lots of option there to kind of shake things up in the home landscape.
I like Eastern Redbud. I actually have one in my backyard.
You do?
I sure do.
Oh, good.
Love it.
So only good things to say about the Redbud, right?
Only
Good. And then the American Fringetree is another favorite that I feel like is very underutilized in our home landscapes. It can be a little difficult to find, so you might need to ask your local nurseryman if they can source that for you. Lots of times we'll see Chinese fringe trees out there as well. They're also gorgeous and would suit well for a home landscape. But I always tend to kind of gravitate towards native options if we can. But they have beautiful fringy white billowy blooms in, we'll say, late spring, not early spring. Again, a nice dark green shiny foliage that comes on that plant. Obviously it's deciduous, but certainly comparable to that Bradford pear in size and cool attributes.
Yeah, I like it. So
And
no
then-
Bradford pear.
No Bradford pear.
All right, just
Let's stay away from Bradford pear.
Make sure. All right.
Yes. And then if we have time to squeeze in one more
let's squeeze it in.
category,
Let's do that.
I think let's talk about flowering shrubs.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
People are going to be so mad at me when I say these two.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on.
Roses. Oh.
But I know why.
And azaleas stab me through the heart.
Gosh. Oh gosh.
So, you know, we've got issues with roses
Yes.
and rose rosette. I know we've had lots of questions on the Q&A about rose rosette here
Sure
in the
have.
past. But it's spread by an aerified mite. There's not a thing in the world we can do to control it. They do not have any proven bred resistance for this virus at the moment, but that's ongoing.
Right. So research is happening.
It is, and UT is part of that research.
Good.
So definitely
good.
still have that going on
Okay.
up in that Crossville area at the UT Gardens at the Plateau.
That's good.
And the azaleas, I'm just gotta
Azaleas?
say, yeah, azaleas,
Really?
if they are not sited correctly, they're gonna be a failure in the landscape. So they prefer low pH. Most people do not even do a soil test before they install an azalea.
Right.
Azaleas will be stressed in full sun situations where they don't have
You're so
irrigation.
right.
The majority of home landscapes do not have automatic irrigation. So azalea
correct.
lace bug kind of comes into play. And once that pest is there, it's a constant struggle.
Gotcha.
So just making sure, I'm gonna say, you can still do azaleas if you're siting them appropriately. You can still do roses. I still have roses.
I do too as well.
But I don't have 20 of the same type of rose planted in one mass planting, right? So I have some of my favorites scattered in and among my other plantings. So trying to slow that spread of the rose rosette. So there are a few things we can do there to kind of help us. But if we're just looking for alternatives, I have to brag on this plant. Some people call it a red twig dogwood, but technically it's a silky dogwood. Yes,
Technically.
Cornus amomum, okay? And it's a cultivar called cayenne.
Oh, I like the name.
I love it.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. It's a plant for all seasons. So in the winter time, after the shrub loses its leaves, the stems are bright red. They're gorgeous.
Yeah,
So if you
I've
have
seen
them
that.
placed properly in the landscape where they can shine off of something solid behind them, they really stand out in a landscape.
Okay.
Then when spring comes, those leaves begin to leaf out. They have beautiful white spring blooms on them. And then the foliage.
There's more.
There is more. The foliage that, like, in the middle of the growing season is gorgeous. No like severe pest or disease.
Oh, I'm
I see
convinced.
very little leaf spotting, and then
And more?
and more.
Okay, all right.
And then in the fall, those leaves begin to change colors into the realms of purple, purpley
I
reds.
am truly convinced.
Yes.
Okay.
So this truly is a plant from a flowering shrub for me for all seasons.
Okay.
And then of course we can't go without mentioning hydrangeas.
Yeah.
If you need a flowering shrub, we can find a hydrangea species to suit your growing conditions, whether that's shade or sun or whatever it be.
Okay.
And then viburnums. We are underutilizing viburnums in Tennessee landscapes. We have 8 native species of viburnum here in Tennessee, and even those that aren't native still can perform really well in our growing conditions. One that's kind of gained popularity in the market the past few years is called spring lace.
Spring lace.
And it is a gorgeous lace cap type bloom, and some people actually think it's a hydrangea when it's in bloom because the blooms look so similar.
Okay.
So lots and lots of options out there when it comes to flowering shrubs. Again, I don't want to put any hard and fast rules out
boy.
there. But just know that we can dig a little deeper. And this is, only a smattering of the options.
Just a little bit.
Yes, that are
Just a
out
little
there.
smattering. Oh, Celeste, that was great. Appreciate that information.
Yeah, I'm
Real
so
good.
glad to be here and talk with y'all.
That was good. That was good. Thank you much.
Yeah.